Hej och välkomna till avsnitt 546 av amerikanska nyhetsanalyser. En konservativ podcast med mig, Ronie Berggren. Idag den 20 mars så är det 15 år sedan USAs president George W. Bush pålyste ett krig mot Irak och dess diktator Saddam Hussein. Bush sa så här:
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. To all the men and women of the United States Armed Forces now in the Middle East, the peace of a troubled world and the hopes of an oppressed people now depend on you.
Den bild som pumpades ut i svensk media av kriget i Irak var djupt vänstervinklad, med ett starkt misstänkliggörande av USAs politiska motiv, följt av illvilliga skildringar av amerikanska soldater. I några avsnitt kommer jag därför att beskriva kriget ur ett mer amerikanskt perspektiv. Jag hängde med i Irakkriget från första början, och för lite djupare bakgrund så rekommenderas min artikelserie Irakkriget ur ett historiskt perspektiv, som finns att hitta på usapool.blogspot.com. Under och efter kriget gjorde jag även många intervjuer med amerikanska soldater i Irak, och detta avsnitt inledde jag med en repris av 2 intervjuer som jag gjorde 2013 respektive 2014 med den amerikanske Irakveteranen Brian Baumgartner. Varmt välkomna! Ja, det här är alltså min första intervju med Irakveteranen Brian Baumgartner som jag lärde känna 2007, och den här intervjun är gjord 2013, och jag inledde med att fråga Brian när han tog värvning och hur allt började.
I was in for approximately 4 years and 6.5 months. I was stationed, aside from my initial training, I was stationed in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and that was about 4.5 months. After that, I went to Texas at Fort Hood, and I was stationed there for about 4 years, minus 1 year when I was in Iraq. But while I was in Iraq, that was still my home station. In terms of Iraq, I was there from January of 2009 to December of 2009.
You didn't have a draft, right? All soldiers, served freely.
Yes, that's correct.
Here in Sweden, a lot of people have no experience fighting wars, and the image that constantly has been produced in our media here about American soldiers in Iraq and in Afghanistan are stereotype characteristics by people like Michael Moore, Cindy Sheehan and so on. And of course WikiLeaks videos about Americans shooting wildlet civilians. So could you do me the favor and tell me a little bit about how life actually were for your soldiers? And American soldiers, how are they like? Do they match these negative stereotypes we have here in Europe?
Well, first I'd like to say something that I had not expected. When I went in, I expected everyone to think like me. They're going in to serve and not for personal benefit. The truth is that the military is all volunteer in the U.S., and it consists of people from every sort of background in the United States, both location and political, from economy and wealth, as well as a number of people from other countries. Case in point, I had a very good friend named George, and he was from Ghana in Africa.
Okay.
And he came to the United States, and he had been here for about 5 years before he went into the Army. And we went to Iraq together. He was my roommate, and I'm a bit proud to say that while he was there, I was able to help him get his citizenship approved. And they flew him down to Baghdad on the 4th of July in 2009, and he received his citizenship, and the vice president was there, and so was General Odierno, who at the time was the general in charge of the Iraq theater. My point is that there's a very, very wide expanse of viewpoints that I saw in the Army, just because we're drawn from so many locations, and a lot of people join for different reasons. Some people join because they want to serve. Other ones join because they want a steady job. Other people are doing it because they want the college benefits. And other people are doing it just because they want some excitement. So there's really every sort of person you can imagine. Additionally, there are people that match up with a lot of negative stereotypes, and there are people that get into the military and they decide that they're not willing to change their lives to be in accordance with our beliefs, our values, and our needs in the military. And I've known quite a few people that have found themselves pushed out for both medical reasons and for behavioral issues. I've known a lot of people that came back with PTSD. I came back with a rather mild form myself.
Okay.
But the people that I've known with it are also, there's just a wide range of them. Some of them try to keep it under control. They undergo therapy or they take medication. I fall in that category. And there's other ones that just try to go with it on their own. And there's further ones that I've met that actually try to use it as an excuse to for bad behavior, whether as a bully or someone that drinks too much or doesn't show up to work on time, or a number of other things like that.
So there are all kind of different soldiers?
Yes, there are. And again, it comes down to values in the end. And there's just such a wide range of values. I've known people, when I was in basic training, I knew one man who came in and his ID that his identification that he showed was his, card from when he was an inmate in New York City jail.
Okay.
And I knew a guy who was my bunkmate who actually had a PhD. He was a licensed doctor. He was a pharmacist. And he went in because he wanted to challenge himself, and also because the Army paid off his student loans, which were substantial, even though he made a very, very good living as a pharmacist. Okay.
So you have a big variety. You mentioned PTSD. Is that the biggest challenge facing soldiers returning home?
I think that the biggest challenge, PTSD is part of it. Truth is, PTSD is not as severe right now as it used to be, for two reasons. Number one, the level of action, for lack of a better term, has really lessened, which means there's not the same level of extreme experiences causing traumatizing experiences. Okay. But also, the military and to a lesser extent the civilian world has identified that this is a serious issue, and they take a lot of steps to alleviate it and to help those soldiers that do need it, whether through therapy, a mentoring program, or even just a matter of saying, hey, look, this is not something you should be ashamed of. It's just being sick like any other way of being sick. Go to a doctor, listen to their advice. We're going to support you. We're not going to see you as any less of a man for trying to get some treatment for it. And that shift in perspective, I think, has made a very large difference.
Could you say that there is a big difference today in how the U.S. military treats its soldiers returning home than it was like 30 years ago during the Vietnam era?
Yes, and that is an excellent question, something I've discussed with a number of Vietnam vets myself. Back in that era, it was the American public was very much against the war, but unlike how it is today, they blame the soldiers as equally as politicians. So you have soldiers or Marines, sailors, airmen coming home and being literally spit upon, people throwing trash at them, calling them terrible names like baby killers. Yeah. And now there's a lot of people that are also against the war, but doing something like that against soldiers, especially, is kind of a political death sentence and is looked at in an extremely negative light. So I think people that don't even like the military, don't even like service members, are too afraid to say that because of how they know the reactions they'll receive from the public, but they are permitted, of course, to be against the war.
Is there any difference between those returning from Iraq and those returning from Afghanistan?
That's a good question, and in truth, I'm not certain. A lot of those, I went in 2008, so by the time I actually knew what the military was like and I deployed, we're talking 2009, even early 2010.
Yeah.
For a while, the emphasis was on Iraq, and the efforts in Afghanistan did not really receive the support that they probably should have, and certainly did not receive the attention they should have. Most of the people I know now that have served in Afghanistan and Iraq, I'd say that Afghanistan has had the biggest negative impact upon them.
Okay.
That things were just nastier there for them.
How did the war affect you on a personal level?
On a personal level, I think that more than anything, it's that I saw something that needed to be done as an opportunity to help people and to serve. In my actual experience, when I was deployed, I had my service consisted of both what we call a line unit, a front lines combat unit,
Okay.
where I would go around doing what's known as route clearance, where we look for the IEDs instead of letting the IEDs find one of our friends. I did that, and I also worked at a high headquarters level that was a command of around 3,000. And in that circumstance, I interacted with a lot of local nationals, civilians, and I spoke with them. I'm still in touch with some of them, and I heard about the things that they and their families had been through under Saddam, and just some monstrous stuff. And the fact that their lives have improved so much, even if it's not what Americans would think was, anywhere near our standards, for lack of a better term, of what they expect for life. These are people that are somewhere genuinely grateful that we were able to help them and to give their families a greater security. Which is not to say that... Go ahead.
That made a big personal impression on you, I guess.
Yes, it did. That I was able to be part of a service that could genuinely help people at a significant level.
I know you also experienced some other things. You trained at Fort Hood, and that was also the place where this jihadistic maniac started shooting and killed 13 people. How did you feel when you heard about that, and did you know any of the victims?
Well, that's a very good question. How I found out, at the time I was working at my brigade headquarters, which is a major command of about 3,500 soldiers, and I was working in their tactical operations center, and my job was to plan and oversee engineer-related missions. Anyway, I was on the nighttime shift, and right around midnight, I would say, perhaps 11 p.m., a phone call came in. And one of my friends, who was a battle captain in that talk, he received a message from our rear detachment, which is, that's called the soldiers that are left behind while we're deployed that stay back in, say, Fort Hood. Anyway, the commander of one of our battalion's rear detachment called and said that all their soldiers were present and accounted for. My friend, Captain Castro, said, "Why are you calling us with this?" And that's when we found out that there were the shootings and that they were in progress. So he and I went to get our breakfast, we call midnight chow, and we put on the news. And that's how we found out about the shootings. In terms of where it happened, I know exactly where it happened because that was the exact same place where I had to process to go to go to Iraq.
Okay.
I did not directly know anyone. However, I recognized one of the victims because she had worked in the unit directly next door to my unit when I was at Fort Hood, and I knew her by face and by rank, just not by name or personal relationship. What had happened was she had become impregnated while in Iraq, and we had to send her home because it was creating an undue risk to the child, so we're required to send her home. So she was actually processing coming back rather than processing to leave. When the shooting happened and she was killed, the site where the processing happens is still a crime scene, so they had to close a gym and use that as a new processing center. I actually have some pictures of where the shootings happened and where there's a little memorial set up.
Okay. Well,
and where we were deployed, there was a memorial service for her on our base.
Okay. Well, very tragic. If I remember it correctly, President George W. Bush was one of the first to visit Fort Hood after the tragedy. Bush was also the sitting president when you served in Iraq. How do you think he was like as a commander-in-chief?
I'd like to make a little correction there.
Okay.
Actually, President Obama was the sitting president at the time.
Okay.
He had assumed office about a week after I deployed. And he was, President Bush did visit many times. In fact, his home at Crawford Ranch is only about 45 minutes from Fort Hood.
Okay.
My cousin actually helped with a security detail at his daughter's wedding. Personally, as a president, I think that George W. Bush was the type of president we needed at the time. He was a businessman. He was ready to take decisive action, and he was willing to temper politics and international relationships with needs. I'll never forget from his speech on September 11th when he basically said that we will distinguish no difference between those that commit terrorist acts and those people that seek to hide and protect those terrorists. I think that at that time we needed a strong, unwavering president exactly as he was. I also know that my church pastor was one of his personal advisors when he was in office. He would routinely fly out to Southern California to my church to meet with my pastor, and my pastor would fly out to the White House.
And finally, a political question, sort of. Was the war in Iraq really worth it?
I think it was. I think that we did everything right for the initial operations of the war, and I think the part that was not, and the good we were able to do for people under a bloodthirsty maniac, I think was the right thing to do. I think the problem that we've had there and in Afghanistan, why long term it doesn't work, is because historically those have never really been countries. If you look at how they were created before and after World War II, it was basically the British and the other allies chopping up regions and saying these are now countries. Well, most of the inhabitants there, they don't have a concept of national identity. They're tribal.
Yeah.
And their allegiance is to their tribe, not to the country. And I think the fact that we did not recognize this is the major reason why we've had so many problems there, because we're trying to support the country on a national level.
Yeah.
And the people don't believe that there really is a nation there. I mean, if you look at Kurdistan, the Kurds consider that to be a sovereign nation. But the truth is, it's regions of 4 or 5 other countries.
Yeah, okay. Well, Brian, it's been a real honor to talk to you. Thank you a lot for taking time.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it, and please stay in touch.
Yes, I will.
I look forward to seeing your article.
Okay, yeah, I will. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Ronie.
Det var alltså min intervju med Brian Baumgartner från 2013, och här kommer min intervju från 2014 där jag och Brian pratar ganska mycket om en del samtidspolitiska händelser som utspelade sig 2014 då i politiken, men som hade med krigsveteranerna och krigspolitiken att göra.
We're going to talk about the military today. You're a war veteran. You served in Iraq. And even though America's 2 wars are winding down, the military is all over the news these days. We have the Department of Veterans Affairs scandal, as well as the release of the Taliban prisoner Ronie Berggren. And let's start with the Veterans Affairs. During the last couple of weeks, reports from whistleblowers have shown that veterans have been forced to wait for months to get the treatment they are promised, and that they are often in desperate need of. These waiting lines and other problems have resulted in numerous deaths. Since you have experienced the war, how many wounded soldiers are there, and how much need is there for treatment?
short answer is there's a lot of wounded soldiers and a lot of need for treatment. I have 3 of my friends that returned missing one or both legs. I have another friend that committed suicide, and a lot of others that just generally self-destructed with alcohol and drugs. So I think that there's not just the obvious physical wounds, but also a lot of psychological wounds, and the treatment is very much needed. But the problem with that is that the treatment only works if the person actually wants to be helped.
Okay, and are there people that does not want help?
I'm sorry, I'm going to turn up the phone because you're echoing. What was that?
Does it exist people that does not want help?
Yeah.
Okay. During your own active service, did you experience anything that made you need help or treatment when you returned home? And if so, did you get the treatment you needed in time?
Yes, I did. After I came back from Iraq, I was fine for a while, but I found myself having just a lot of pretty much aggression issues, wanting to respond to conflict very aggressively, sometimes physically. And after about a month, I realized that I was having a pretty serious problem. I also couldn't spend any time in crowds without getting very, very, I wouldn't say scared, but very nervous and uncomfortable. And I noticed a few times that I almost got into physical altercations, and at that point, I decided to receive some psychological counseling and treatment in the military because I wanted to resolve that before my chain of command, my commander, would get involved. And I started doing that and was put on some medication and also worked through some issues, and that helped me a great deal.
Okay. Would you say that there is a bigger need for psychological treatment than for physical treatment?
Yes, and the reason is that the psychological wounds are much less apparent, and unlike most physical wounds, they generally do not heal on their own.
Okay. Why would you say does the Veterans Affairs, the VA, have these problems? Is it simply because of lack of funding?
I'm not the best source on that. I had some trouble with the VA when I was in Texas because of the way it was operated. It was so centralized. It would take me 2 months to get an initial appointment, and when I ended up moving, I had to start all over again. But in California, I've had such, and I can't believe I had a good experience in California compared to Texas, but I've had such a good experience, I'd even say it was a blessing. I was able to get in to see doctors within 2 weeks of first arriving back here. I've been able to get my medication. I've had some very, very helpful people. I've generally had a good experience here.
Okay, but you know, a lot of people have not had a good experience. And how do you think that President Obama have handled this question? And how does his approach compare with that of President Bush, another war president?
With Obama, I something I noticed in the news, I thought he spent too much time saying he would fix it, he would look into it, but he didn't make any promises of, to be completely honest, criminal negligence charges and investigations and firing the people at the highest level of leadership that knew about this. And I think that would have been the case with President Bush because he was a little more hands-on, willing to take the measures that are necessary, even if they may not have been as politically popular, because they were right.
Okay. One last question about this subject. Except for the aid given by the government, what are the most important things for soldiers returning home for them to get their life back together and working again? Is it family, friends? Is it money?
I think it's the friends that have become family, mostly other veterans, being able to talk to them about their struggles without worrying about, other people in their family that might not understand, becoming worried, without just being able to connect and to be able to talk things out with other people with shared experiences. I think that's very important.
In your own situation, what has been most important for you?
I think for me, being able to receive psychiatric counseling when I needed it without it screwing up my career or image, because I sought it and received it before I got into any trouble, it didn't have any real impact on my job. And this is a change from, say, 10 years ago and before, where trying to get psychological help there was a general perception that it was a sign of weakness. And now, in the Army at least, I've noticed that they take it very seriously, that it's not really stigmatizing an individual. It's someone dealing with any other health issues. And I think this change of mentality is very important, and probably one of the most important changes in military perspectives at the leadership level in the last 15, 20 years.
Very interesting. Okay, now let's change topic. A couple of days ago, President Obama held a press conference where he announced that he had traded 5 Taliban prisoners held at Guantanamo in exchange for Ronie Berggren, an American soldier held for 5 years by the Taliban and the last American prisoner in Taliban hands. The announcement spurred very strong reactions, especially among fellow soldiers who considered Berggren to be a traitor and a deserter. According to you, was he a traitor?
Yes, I believe he was. I don't know how much actual aid he may have given to the Taliban, but I do believe he was absolutely a deserter based on not just the public reactions I've seen, but my own reports some intelligence reports I read when he initially disappeared.
Okay, so you don't, President Obama had his parents there, and, Susan Rice, his counselor said that at the morning show last Sunday that he was a hero. That is not true.
No, I don't believe that he was. I don't know that he was necessarily a full-blown traitor insofar as helping the enemy. I think, although I believe it's definitely possible, but I believe that he was a deserter, and I do believe that his actions directly or indirectly led to the loss of multiple American lives.
Okay. To get him free, Obama let 5 Taliban prisoners loose. Was that the right thing to do? And if it was wrong, would it have been right if the Taliban had held the real American heroes prisoners and not a deserter like Berggren?
On that one, there's a saying in the Army that we take very seriously about you never leave someone behind.
Yeah.
But having said that, I honestly do not believe that what he did was right. Number one, it is the standing of the United States and West nations that we do not negotiate with terrorists. And whatever the legal justification of, well, we didn't negotiate with terrorists, we negotiated with Qatar, who negotiated with terrorists, I still think that it was negotiating with terrorists and probably criminal action, regardless of who was being held. Even beyond that, the fact that he released 5 very, very dangerous people, Taliban leaders, that will most certainly go back to what they were doing before, I would like to see a criminal investigation happen because it bothers me that deeply. I think it was very irresponsible and almost certainly illegal. In fact, probably broke multiple American laws.
Okay. Okay, thank you a lot. Before we finish, on Friday it will be 70 years since D-Day, the day when American soldiers such as yourselves saved Europe from Nazism, and according to me, the United States have the coolest military in the world. You're a nation who, yeah, I believe that. You're a nation who for almost 70 years, by a peaceful military presence around the globe, have given the world stability and kept peace. You're also the only military in the world where people like yourself willingly join up in hope of actually helping others and make the world a better place. Here in Sweden and in Europe, most people do not understand this and basically look upon American soldiers as villains. But according to me, you and your fellow friends from the military are heroes. So I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for everything you and your nation has done for Europe and for the world the last couple of decades. You are worth a lot more appreciation than you usually get from this side of the Atlantic. So thank you, Brian, and as always, it's always really fun talking to you, even though my English is quite lousy.
Well, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate that. I really do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And and I do have other friends in Europe as well as other parts in the globe, like New Zealand and Australia. And I know that we have different images in different areas, and I won't say that we haven't made a lot of mistakes, but I genuinely believe that a lot of what some people think is interference we do around the globe, we're really trying to make things better to the best of our ability.
Yes, and you really are.
Thank you. Goodbye.